Imagine for a moment that your physiology isn't actually collapsing. It is simply recalibrating its entire communication network. At the milestone of 65, the volume of your vitality doesn't suddenly drop. It shifts frequency, moving from a broadcast to a series of nuanced, internal pulses. It is a rhythmic, subtle evolution that bypasses the headlines of your health and settles into the fine print of your daily rhythm. Most people mistake this linguistic shift for a malfunction. They view their senior years as a steep descent, but in reality your anatomy is upgrading its communication style to a more sophisticated, understated dialect that requires a new kind of literacy. There is no biological midnight, no siren blaring that your 60s have arrived with a new set of rules. Instead, there is an unspoken consensus among geriatric specialists. Your physical framework begins a quiet transformation. It isn't a tectonic shift, but a series of micro-adjustments that, if misinterpreted, can erode your autonomy and zest for life. These aren't defects, they are data points. Your body isn't failing the test of time. It is negotiating a new contract based on wisdom and conservation rather than raw, unbridled power. The first manifestation is the lag time in your cellular restoration cycle. That afternoon spent rearranging the garage or tending to the garden now lingers in your joints well into the following Tuesday. A common seasonal sniffle feels like you've run a marathon in the rain. You might label this as declining strength, but that's a categorical misdiagnosis. Your internal repair technicians haven't retired. They have simply adopted a more methodical, meticulous pace of reconstruction. The error most of us commit is clinging to the warrior mindset of our 30s, assuming we can still bulldoze through exhaustion. In this new era, exertion without intentional decompression is a recipe for physical bankruptcy. The strategy isn't to fight harder, but to curate your energy with more precision. Patience isn't a sign of slowing down. It is a high-level management skill for your long-term longevity. Then comes the subtle drift in your internal gyroscope. You might find yourself reaching for a doorframe instinctively or pausing for a heartbeat before stepping onto an uneven sidewalk. This isn't a random glitch or a sign of impending frailty. It is a recalibration of your spatial integration. Your eyes, inner ears, and peripheral nerves are learning a more delicate dance of coordination. Because this sensory synchronization is now more intricate, your margin for error narrows. Medical experts emphasize that balance isn't something you simply lose. It is something you must actively tune like a fine instrument. Waiting for a significant stumble to address your stability is like waiting for a shipwreck to check the ship's compass. Taking your poise seriously today is the ultimate investment in your future independence. Sleep, too, undergoes a structural renovation that catches many off guard. The solid, unbroken 8-hour block of your youth might fracture into distinct chapters. You find yourself greeting the dawn much earlier than intended or drifting into lighter states of consciousness throughout the night. Many dismiss this as needing less rest, but that is a dangerous biological fallacy. Your brain still requires that nightly cognitive rinse to clear out metabolic waste and solidify memories. When sleep becomes brittle or fragmented, your mood, recall, and immune defenses become increasingly vulnerable. You don't need less restoration. You need a more deliberate sanctuary for it, prioritizing sleep hygiene over sleep quantity. Perhaps the most clandestine shift involves your internal gauges for fuel and hydration. Your brain's low battery indicators, hunger and thirst, become strangely muted. You could be running on empty with your cells screaming for hydration, without ever feeling the pang of a dry throat or an empty stomach. This metabolic silence is a stealthy adversary, often masquerading as brain fog, dizziness, or sudden bouts of confusion. The remedy is to transition from reactive consumption to scheduled nourishment. You no longer eat simply because you're hungry, you eat to sustain the complex machinery of your life. You drink water as a sacred ritual of maintenance, not just a response to a parched mouth. We must also acknowledge the changing architecture of your nervous system regarding stress. In your younger years, stress was a storm you could weather and forget. After 65, it becomes a corrosive element. Minor irritations that you once laughed off now carry a higher biological price tag, impacting your blood pressure and inflammatory markers with newfound intensity. Your resilience hasn't vanished, but your neurological elasticity has changed. This means that tranquility is no longer a luxury or a hobby, it is a vital survival mechanism. Cultivating peace of mind is now the primary shield for your cardiovascular health and emotional equilibrium. The ultimate and most critical shift is the volume control on your body's warning lights. Major health issues no longer arrive with a scream, they come as a heavy sigh. A serious underlying condition might not trigger a sharp, localized pain, but rather a generalized sense of fading out, or a sudden lack of interest in your favorite hobbies. Discomfort replaces agony, lethargy replaces fever. Because these signals are so polite and understated, they are frequently ignored until they become undeniable crises. But true wisdom lies in catching the whisper before it becomes a shout. The greatest risk of aging isn't the physical transition itself, but the wall of silence we build around it. We tell ourselves it's just part of getting old, and refuse to voice our concerns. But self-neglect is not stoicism, it is a gamble with your freedom. Your body is not betraying you, it is asking for a partnership based on observation rather than expectation. It is requesting more reverence, more awareness, and significantly less pressure. Aging is a masterclass in the art of listening. Those who learn to decode these subtle, whispered cues don't just endure their later years. They thrive with a profound sense of dignity and strength. You don't need to overwork your frame. You simply need to honor its new frequency. If this reframed your perspective on the journey of aging, join our community by liking and subscribing. Because the right insight delivered at the right season can change the entire trajectory of your life.